There are many players who both crashed and saved their draft stock during the 2021 season, and in today's video we're going to continue our series where we take a look at 3 players whose stock died during the 2021 season. We're going to talk about who they are, their collegiate careers, and what ultimately went wrong. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started and talk about our first player, Calvin Jackson. Calvin Jackson was born and raised in the Sunshine State, and he eventually became a star football player at Coral Springs High School. He was so good that he was offered a scholarship to play football at Toledo, which he happily accepted. Unfortunately though, he would not be eligible due to academic standards, so he'd have to bank on himself and head to the JUCO system to try and improve his offer sheet. Some people who watch this channel may not know this, but he actually played at Independence Community College, which was part of the Netflix series Last Chance U, and everyone seems to love that, so if you watch that show, you probably know who Jackson is. While he was there, he became a star and eventually started to gain Power 5 interest. Coming out of Hutchinson, he was a 3-star recruit, the number 17 wide receiver, and the 188th best JUCO player in the class of 2018. After this, he would head across the country to join the air raid system with head coach Mike Leach in Pullman, Washington. He decided to go to Washington State because of Toledo's former wide receiver coach who had now moved from the Rockets to the Cougars. So how would Jackson do there? Well, he spent 3 years as an outside receiver for them and only had 287 yards and 2 touchdowns in 2018, and then injuries would limit him to just 4 games over the next 2 seasons combined. He had been extremely disappointing, but then he finally put it all together with Jaden DeLaura at quarterback during the 2021 season. He was named a second-team All-Pac-12 selection after he caught 66 passes for 987 yards and 7 scores, and the season was pretty dysfunctional as they lost their head coach Nick Rolovich and their defensive coordinator stepped up and took over. During this season, Jackson had one of the best catches of the year, as against Cal, he caught a one-handed pass for a touchdown, and that made a lot of highlight reels. Because of that, he decided to declare for the 2022 NFL Draft and went down to South Florida to train. He said, quote, "I've enjoyed every second being here. I've been training with Kenneth Walker, Smoke Monday, and Roger McCreary. I've been training with guys who were all definite NFL picks, and it definitely puts a chip on my shoulder and pushes me harder. I've made some good bonds and some great memories with these guys." Most mock drafts had him as a day 3 pick, and he was believed he was worthy of a draft pick. He said, quote, "I think my pass catching is my biggest selling point, and then my speed. I have to prove a lot of people that I have high-end speed with my route running though." Him and his teammate Travell Harris both ended up going undrafted, but he would get a chance to sign an undrafted free agent deal with the New York Jets. So why did Jackson go undrafted? Well, for one, he was only 5'9", he had one good year, and he had been in the slot for 1 season. Combine that with average athletic scores, and maybe just better options at the position, this is what led to Jackson going undrafted. When he was asked about this, he said, quote, "It didn't work out in my favor, but I'm going to use that to fuel the fire. Any opportunity I get, I told myself I was going to make the most of it. And I think I did that." So yeah, he will now join the Jets roster, and let's see if he can make that 53-man squad. Moving over to the ACC, the next guy we're going to talk about is James Skalski. He's best known as the hard-hitting Clemson linebacker who knocked Justin Fields' socks off during the college football playoff. But as we go back in time, he was an all-state linebacker and a Region 4A Defensive Player of the Year. He ended up going to Northgate High School in Georgia, but despite that, he was pretty lightly recruited. He played soccer as well as linebacker and punter, and always worked his tail off to achieve his dreams of one day playing in the NFL. In high school, he recorded 170 tackles, including 33 TFLs, 11 sacks, 3 fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, a pick, and 2 defensive touchdowns. But he was still doubted. He said, quote, "Anything you do when people doubt you and prove them wrong, it feels good." He'd eventually choose Clemson over South Carolina and Louisville back in 2016, and according to 24/7 Sports, Skalski was a 3-star recruit, the number 44 outside linebacker, and the 680th best player in the class of 2016. As we go into his Clemson career, he played a little bit as a freshman, but that year became very difficult for him. On October 14th, 2016, his father died of a heart attack. This would happen while he was mowing the lawn, and because of that, Skalski would miss their following game against NC State, which was completely understandable. Fueled by that, he took off as a sophomore as he started 2 games and recorded 37 tackles, including 2 TFLs. Before 2018, he suffered an injury, but due to the NCAA redshirt rule, he was able to come back at the end of the year and help the Tigers win the national championship without losing any eligibility. As a redshirt junior in 2019, Skalski was second on the team with 105 tackles, including 7.5 TFLs and 4.5 sacks. He was a very dominant player, but unfortunately, he got into a little bit of trouble, as in their playoff defeat against LSU, he was ejected for targeting, and that would not be the last time. He would once again return in 2020 and have a good year, but he would suffer a mid-season injury, and at times it looked a little bit dicey for him. He eventually returned to Clemson to get them back to the Sugar Bowl, but he was famously ejected for that hit on Justin Fields, which in my opinion was clean, but it was just rough looking. Instead of graduating, he would skip the 2021 NFL Draft, he would return for one more year, and he got to make history along the way. He wanted to help them get revenge, but unfortunately, 2021 did not go as expected, as they both missed the ACC Championship and the College Football Playoff, as they only won 9 regular season games, and many viewed it as a disappointing year. As a 2-year captain, Skalski had a pretty decorated career. He finished with 310 career tackles, 20 tackles for loss, and 10 sacks. He also broke up 12 passes and returned 2 fumbles for a touchdown. He played in 69 career games and tied both the school and modern college football record, and became the only player to ever play and win 5 ACC championship games. Surely he was NFL caliber, right? Well, he was not even invited to the NFL Combine, and this lit a fire under him and put a massive chip on his shoulder. So why did he end up going undrafted? Well, for one, he's not super athletic. He did suffer a late season injury, was also known for poor quickness, and honestly, linebackers are not that hard to find, so no one felt he was worthy of a draft pick. He is seen as a practice squad player who could make a name for himself on special teams and with just how hard he works and plays. He got signed to the Indianapolis Colts, but I'm honestly not sure if he'll even make the roster. Skalski's an awesome dude, he's very inspiring, and he was great at Clemson, so I really hope the best for him and wish nothing but success for him. The final guy we're going to take a look at in today's video is Ricky Person. Many of you guys probably didn't know this, but NC State signed one of the nation's top high school running backs back a few years ago, and that was Ricky Person Jr. He's going to end up being an undrafted gem in my opinion, and Person began playing at around 6 years old. He'd play in a hometown recreational league, and though he wasn't really inspired by anything or any player, he had a drive to be good, and he had a lot of fun playing. Eventually, he took advantage of the talent he had, and decided to put all his chips into that basket. While in middle school, Person had thoughts of quitting football. When he told his coach he was going to quit though, his coach told him to leave. This gave Person an opportunity to step away from the game, but as quickly as he quit, he decided to come running back, and it was a great decision for him. He was born and raised in the state of North Carolina, and he blew up as a sophomore at Franklinton High School, where he ran for over 1,000 yards and 16 touchdowns. That is also where he was first introduced to the NC State program, as it was pretty close to him. He developed a great relationship with the staff, so when he transferred to Heritage High School, he still had a great bond with them. Despite an injury, he still had a huge senior year, as he ran for 2,230 yards and 38 touchdowns, and also was a threat out of the backfield. Because of that, Person earned a spot in the U.S. Army All-American game and had a lot of big-time offers, but he knew where he was going to go. He eventually chose NC State over Tennessee, North Carolina, and Duke, but that almost didn't happen. The guy who recruited him at NC State originally chose to leave to take the head coaching job at Furman, but he would later back out of that and come back to NC State, so Person would stay committed to the Pack. But besides that, why else did he decide to go to NC State over other big-time schools? Well, he made a promise to his dying grandmother that he would go there and live by her principles in life, so that pretty much explains itself. Person was one of the biggest recruits of the Dave Doeren era, as according to 24/7 Sports, Person was a 4-star recruit, the number 2 running back, and the 41st best player in the class of 2018. The 24/7 composite rankings are a little bit lower on him, as he's ranked 111th overall in that one, but according to 24/7 Sports scouts themselves, they were pretty high on him. Either way though, he had a lot of hype, so how would he end up doing? Well, led by talent and guidance from former NC State superstar running back Nyheim Hines, Person would have a great career. In his time at the Pack, he ended up rushing for 1,979 yards and 14 touchdowns, and also caught 57 passes for 482 yards and 4 scores. He rushed the ball for over 100 times in 2 games, and split time with Zonovan Knight, who ended up getting drafted this year. He'd elect to skip his final year of eligibility and declare for the 2022 draft, but would it be enough to get him drafted? Unfortunately, it was not, as his teammate Zonovan was drafted, but Person was not. He still believed he could make it in the NFL though. He said, quote, "This has been a long time. I have always dreamed of this ever since I was a little kid, especially in North Carolina, and it's something I've always worked for. The pro day was the day I could put it all together and showcase my talent to all the scouts." Some scouts did see him as a day 3 pick, but his odds of hearing his name called were pretty low. He still said he was a steal, and he's going to live by that mindset. He said, quote, "Whoever gives me an opportunity knows they have someone who can do it all. I can catch the ball, run downhill, and I can do anything they need me to do. If they need me to block, I'll block. As I said earlier, he ended up not hearing his name called, but he did sign in an ideal spot as the Ravens would grab him. So why did he end up going undrafted? Well, one, his production wasn't great. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. He kind of had the same stat line every year, and that leads to the second reason, which was stagnation. After that, he did lack burst and acceleration, and overall did lack some physicality. Adding in the fact that he played at NC State probably didn't help, and there probably wasn't enough for a team to think they needed to draft this guy instead of grabbing him as an undrafted dude. When you take a look at his role on the Ravens, he will have to compete with some players. Guys such as Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, Mike Davis, and their other rookie 6th round pick Tyler Beatty are all going to be fighting for those spots. And then obviously you also have J.K. Dobbins. I would say it's kind of unlikely he makes the roster, but they'll probably keep him on the practice squad, and if there is an injury, he could have an opportunity there. We saw how thin the Ravens running back room was last year, and with his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield and his untapped potential, maybe, just maybe, he could be a steal. But since he's come out of high school, his stock has unfortunately fell. Well, what do you guys think? In today's video, we talked about 3 players whose stock crashed. First with Calvin Jackson from Washington State, second with James Skalski from Clemson, and third with Ricky Person Jr. from NC State. Let me know what you think of these guys, give me another player whose stock fell in the 2022 draft, and let me know what topic I should cover next. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe, smash that like button if you want to support today's video, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.